It was a quiet night in the small human colony near the edge of the forest. The stars above twinkled gently, and the wind was soft and cool. Jace, a lonely mechanic, was fixing his old solar generator in his workshop. He had no family, no friends nearby, just tools. Silence and his thoughts. Suddenly, the sky turned red. A loud boom shook the ground, and windows shattered across the town. Jace looked up. A massive ball of fire streaked across the stars. It was a spaceship, burning, falling fast. It crashed into the forest with a thunderous roar. The trees lit up in flames like torches, and black smoke climbed high. Everyone in the colony came out screaming, confused and afraid. Is it a meteor? Someone yelled, "No, it's an alien ship." Another voice shouted. Jace didn't wait. He grabbed a fire extinguisher, a flashlight, and his emergency bag, while others ran away. He ran toward the flames. The trees were thick, and the fire made the path dangerous. But Jace didn't stop. His heart was racing, but something pulled him forward. He heard a faint sound in the distance, a soft, broken voice calling, "Help. Please." He stopped in his tracks. That wasn't a human voice. He pushed through branches and leaped over burning logs. He found the crashed ship, broken in half and twisted like metal paper. Flames roared around it, but he moved closer. "Anyone in there?" He shouted. No answer, just the sound of crackling fire and metal groaning. Then he heard it again. "Please, I'm trapped." Jace rushed to the side of the ship through a shattered window. He saw a small figure. It was a girl, not human, with silver blue skin and glowing lines on her arms. Her face was covered in ash, and her eyes were full of fear. The door was jammed shut. He used his wrench to break the lock, burning his hands on the hot metal. He didn't care. He had to get her out. With one last pull, the door broke open. Smoke poured out, and the alien girl coughed hard. Jace grabbed her and pulled her into his arms. She was light, too light, and shaking badly. He ran through the fire, shielding her body with his own. His jacket burned and his boots melted, but he didn't stop. Finally, he burst out of the forest. People gasped when they saw him carrying the alien child. "Don't come close." Someone shouted, "She might be dangerous." Jace ignored them. He laid her gently on the grass and opened his water bottle. She drank slowly, her lips trembling. He used his clean shirt to wipe the ash from her face. She stared at him with wide, glowing eyes. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice weak but soft. Jace smiled slightly. "You're safe now. You're gonna be okay." Behind him, the fire burned brighter. Someone in the crowd shouted, "That girl? She's royalty. Look at the markings." Gasps filled the air, and whispers spread like fire. Royalty. From which empire? The crest on her neck. That's the royal line of Zorelia. People began to panic. If she was a princess, that meant her people would come, and no one knew if they would come in peace or in rage. Jace stood in front of the girl as if guarding her. "I don't care who she is," he said firmly. "She was going to die. So I pulled her out." Some people looked at him like he was a hero, others like he had just cursed them all. The girl looked up at him again. "My name is Lyra." Jace nodded. "I'm Jace. Rest now, Lyra. I've got you." She slowly closed her eyes, trusting him, and up in orbit, silent alarms triggered. Dozens of alien ships received the emergency signal. Royal blood found. Condition, critical. Location, planet Earth. And far away, in the royal palace, the Empress stood up from her throne. Her eyes glowed with fear, and her voice echoed through the chamber. "Find my daughter." And the human who touched her that night. The stars shifted as warships began to move. But they were not coming to burn Earth. They were coming to kneel before the man who pulled their princess from the fire. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. The smoke still filled her lungs, and her body ached. She was lying on a soft blanket under a tree. Above her, strange birds flew across the human sky. Her vision blurred, but then she saw him again. the human with the strong arms and kind eyes. He was sitting beside her, wrapping his burned hands in cloth. She blinked, whispering, "You saved me." Jace looked over and smiled gently. "Yeah, you were in a tough spot." Her body trembled, not just from pain, but from fear. "I'm not supposed to be here," she whispered. "I'm supposed to be dead." Jace frowned. "What do you mean?" But before she could answer, the ground shook again. A deep hum filled the air, one that made the trees shake. The colony's people looked up in fear. Alien ships, huge, black, and shaped like wings, began landing near the fields. Soldiers in silver and violet armor marched out in silence. They moved with perfect timing. Not speaking a word, everyone in the colony stepped back, unsure what to do. Jace stood up and moved in front of Lyra protectively. The lead alien removed his helmet. His face was sharp and cold. He bowed low, eyes on Jace, and said, "You hold the blood of Zorelia in your arms. That makes you holy." Jace didn't understand. "I just pulled her out of a fire. That's all." The alien commander nodded, "And for that, the Empress herself thanks you. You may make one request." Jace turned to Lyra. She looked terrified. "No," she said, clutching his arm. "Don't let them take me." The commander's eyes narrowed. "She is our responsibility." "She stays," Jace said firmly. "She's still healing." The soldiers paused, waiting for an order, but the commander raised his hand and nodded slowly, "As you wish. Until she is ready, she will remain with the human." Then, in front of everyone, colonists, soldiers, and children, the alien soldiers knelt. They placed their weapons on the ground and lowered their heads. The humans watched in shock. They had never seen aliens bow before a man. Jace didn't feel like a hero. He only felt the weight of a scared girl's hand on his wrist. When the soldiers left, the colony began whispering again. "Who is she? Why did they bow to Jace? Are we in danger now?" Jace didn't have the answers. He carried Lyra back to his small home and laid her on a soft bed. He brought her soup, helped her sit up, and spoke gently. "Tell me the truth, Lyra. Why were you in that ship?" Lyra looked away, tears building in her glowing eyes. "I was sent here as a peace offering. But someone wanted me dead, my own guards. They locked me in the escape pod and aimed it at your planet's atmosphere." Jace's eyes hardened. It was no accident. She nodded. "I wasn't supposed to survive." She reached into her belt and pulled out a small crystal cube. "This is my proof," she said softly. "My mother, the Empress, hid a message here. For me." Jace touched the cube, and a soft light filled the room. A hologram of the Empress appeared, tall, graceful, and tired. "Daughter," the message said, "if you are seeing this, then I have fallen or been betrayed. There are forces in the Empire who fear peace. They fear what you represent. Trust no one wearing the crest of fire." The image faded, and the cube dimmed. Jace sat in silence. He had seen that crest before, on the alien commander's chest, the one who bowed, and yet still watched too closely. Lyra shivered. "They'll come for me again." Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then they'll have to get through me." That night, Jace locked the doors, turned off all signals, and set up old security drones. Lyra couldn't sleep, but she watched him as he moved calm, focused, kind. He gave her a pillow and a warm drink. "You're not my problem, Lyra," he said quietly. "But you are my responsibility now." She looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you helping me?" Jace smiled. "Tired but honest. Because no one helped my daughter when she needed saving. And I can't let that happen again." Lyra's heart squeezed. She didn't know what happened to his daughter. But in that moment, she felt safer than she had in years. Outside, the stars were silent. But above them, ships moved again. Not just one, but dozens, and not all of them friendly, because Lyra was alive. And because one human had the courage to pull her from the flames, the game of empires had begun. 3 days passed since Jace rescued Lyra from the fire. The forest still smelled like smoke, but the flames were out. Lyra was healing slowly, but her nightmares had just begun. Each night, she woke up shaking, whispering things in her alien tongue. Jace sat nearby, always alert, a blaster by his side. He didn't understand her language, but he understood fear. She wasn't just a lost girl anymore. She was a hunted royal. And someone, somewhere, wanted her gone for good. The colony had grown quiet. People didn't speak loudly anymore, and they stayed away from Jace's house. Some feared another alien attack. Others feared the attention Lyra had brought. But Jace didn't care what they thought. His focus was on keeping her alive. Late one evening, the sun dipped low behind the trees. Jace was working on his backyard sensors when he noticed something strange. One of the motion alarms had gone off, then reset itself. That wasn't normal. He checked the cables. No sign of damage. Then he saw it. A small footprint in the dirt. Too small for a soldier. Too light for a colonist. But too fresh to ignore. He returned to the house quickly. Lyra was awake, sitting by the window, staring at the sky. She turned as he entered and said quietly, "They're watching." Jace froze. "Who?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled back her sleeve and showed him a scar, glowing faintly. This was from a tracker, removed it 2 days ago. "But they still find me." Jace swallowed hard. "How?" "They use shadows. Not soldiers. Assassins. Quiet ones. You never see them, but they see you." He felt a chill crawl down his spine. That night, he doubled the defenses. Drones hovered around the roof. Old military cameras watched every angle. Still, something felt off. Too quiet, too clean. Even the animals had gone silent. In the middle of the night, a whisper woke Lyra. She sat up slowly, her eyes wide. She saw nothing, but felt everything. She reached for the emergency alert, but hesitated. Then she saw it a shimmer by the door, like heat in the air. Her hand slammed the alert button. The siren blared through the home. Jace leaped from the couch, grabbed his blaster, and ran to her room. He saw the shimmer too, and fired. Sparks flew as an invisible figure fell. The cloaking device flickered, revealing a masked alien in dark armor before Jace could approach. The attacker rolled and threw a flash grenade. The blast of light blinded him for a moment. When his vision cleared, the figure was gone. Only a deep scratch on the wall remained, the mark of the crest of fire. Lyra stared at it in horror. "They're here," she whispered. "Tss, the same ones who sabotaged my ship?" Jace cursed under his breath. "They weren't here to capture you," he said. "They were here to finish it." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I told you. I was never meant to survive." He sat beside her, gripping the blaster tightly. "You're not alone anymore." The next morning, news of the break-in spread. Some colonists wanted Lyra removed, said she was too dangerous. Jace stood before the council, Lyra beside him, and said, "She's not dangerous. The ones chasing her are. If we hand her over, we lose more than just a life. We lose our humanity." Some listened, some didn't. Back home, Lyra handed Jace a second cube. "This one. It's not a message. It's evidence," she said. When he activated it, it played recordings from inside the royal ship. Conversations between high commanders. "She's too soft. Peace will destroy our power. She must disappear quietly." Jace clenched his fists. This wasn't just politics. This was murder. He copied the file and hid the original in a tool panel under the floor. That evening, a message arrived on an old radio frequency. Encrypted, alien. It said one thing: "We know where you are." The fire was just the beginning. Jace stared at the message, then looked at Lyra. She didn't look afraid this time. She looked ready. "They're not just hunting you anymore," he said. She nodded. "They're hunting us." He stood and began pulling gear from an old storage chest. "We need to disappear before they come again. And when we do, we hit back." Lyra smiled for the first time in days, not because she was safe, but because she finally had someone who believed in her. Outside, the wind picked up, and the trees whispered like ghosts. But in Jace's home, a plan was forming. And the shadows watching from the hills knew their time was running out. Jace didn't sleep much after the attack. The invisible assassin had come too close. He now knew the truth. This wasn't a rescue mission gone wrong. This was a political murder plot from inside an alien empire. And somehow, a human mechanic had become the last shield for a royal alien girl. But Jace wasn't the kind of man to walk away. Not anymore. The next morning, he packed what he could. Extra food, repair tools, medical kits, and old battle gear from his soldier days. He helped Lyra into the rover quietly. "We can't stay in the colony," he said. "They know where we are." Lyra nodded without speaking, her eyes scanning the sky. The silence between them was heavy but full of trust. She had seen war before, but never kindness like his. They drove deep into the forest and beyond the old mountains. Jace had built a hidden shelter long ago during the border wars. A place no scanners could find, buried under layers of old rock and camo tech. "This is where we stay," Jace said, opening the steel door. "It's not fancy, but it's safe." Lyra walked inside slowly, running her fingers over the old walls. "This was your home before." "No," Jace replied. "This was my backup plan. For when things go bad," she smiled slightly. "You were ready for a war. I was never ready," he said quietly. "That's why I survived." Over the next few days, they lived in silence. Jace upgraded the shelter's defenses. He reprogrammed old drones, cleaned weapons, and set traps. Lyra helped where she could, repairing cracked consoles. Learning Earth tech, she was quick, sharper than he expected. "I studied human science in secret," she told him one night. "I always believed our worlds could work together." Jace smiled. "Guess we're the proof now." But peace didn't last. One evening, the warning beacons flashed red. Not from the forest, but from orbit. A large alien warship had entered Earth's upper atmosphere. Jace tapped into the old satellite feed, and what he saw made his blood go cold. It wasn't just a scout ship. It was a royal battle cruiser. The same class used to crush rebellions, and standing in its command deck, staring straight into the feed, was the commander with the crest of fire on his chest. Jace turned to Lyra. "They're here for you. And they're not hiding anymore." She stood up, fear in her eyes, but something else to resolve. "Then it's time," she said. "Time to show the truth." Jace nodded. He opened a secure communication line, a hidden channel only used by ex-soldiers. He sent a single message. "This is Jace Riker, civilian. Earth, I'm holding proof of Empire betrayal. Request off-world contact." Then he attached the holo recordings. Lyra's proof of the conspiracy. The moment he hit send, everything changed. The message spread faster than expected. Rebel networks, trade ships, hidden diplomats all saw it. Alien news stations picked it up and aired the clip. Royal princess targeted by her own empire. Human saves her life. It exploded across star systems. Suddenly, Jace's name was known in places he'd never even heard of, and Lyra. She wasn't just a missing child anymore. She was a symbol of truth, of rebellion, of change. But it came with a cost. That night, 3 more assassin squads landed outside the mountain range. They didn't sneak this time. They marched with plasma rifles. Jace stood at the bunker's door, watching the motion feed. "They're not here to arrest you," he said calmly. "They're here to erase everything." Lyra stood beside him, holding a light blaster, her hands shaking but steady. "We can't let them win," she whispered. "Not again." Jace activated the traps. Explosions shook the forest as drones fired from hidden towers. The mountain echoed with blasts. Screams and metal against metal. Jace moved like he had years ago, fast, precise, deadly, and Lyra. She didn't hide. She stood in the signal room, broadcasting live to the galaxy again. "The Empire tried to silence me. They failed. We will rise together, human and alien." When the last soldier fell, silence returned. Smoke curled in the air and the ground burned hot. Jace leaned against the bunker wall, breathing hard. Lyra walked over and sat beside him. "You fought like 10 men," she said, smiling. Jace chuckled. "I used to be 10 men. Above them, dozens of signals began to ping their system. Alien ships, refugee transports, rebel units, all asking the same thing. Where do we land? We want to help." Jace looked at Lyra, and she looked back with steady eyes. "The Empire made me a pawn," she said, "but you made me free. High above the earth, inside a golden chamber, floating in space." The Empress of Zorelia sat on her crystal throne. She was old now, tired. Her body weak from years of silent battles, but her mind was still sharp. Sharper than anyone dared to believe. Beside her, holograms blinked, showing one thing over and over. Jace Riker. The human who rescued her daughter, now the face of a rising storm. Her servants waited, afraid to speak. The Empress finally raised her hand. Slow but full of power. "Leave me," she said, her voice heavy. When the room emptied, she stared at the glowing screen in front of her. It showed Jace and Lyra side by side, standing before a crowd of human and alien refugees. They weren't soldiers, they were engineers, farmers, children, but they were listening. And they were ready. The Empress touched a small orb on her throne. A hidden message recording began, one that would only play upon her death. "To my people," she said, "do not follow my crown. Follow the one who chose life over war. The one who carried my child through fire. Follow the human." Back on Earth, Jace didn't know what was coming. He stood at the edge of a cliff with Lyra beside him. Below them, a field of temporary camps had been built. Hundreds of aliens from across different species were arriving every day, escaping the Empire, searching for something new, something better. Jace rubbed his eyes. "This is getting too big." Lyra handed him a comlink. "You didn't ask for this, but they believe in you." He shook his head. "I'm not a leader. You are to them," she whispered. Just then, an urgent signal interrupted their conversation. A rebel ship from the planet Velisor was sending a distress beacon under attack. Empire loyalists, requesting help. Innocent civilians trapped. Lyra didn't wait. "We have to go." Jace looked at the numbers. Their old cruiser couldn't carry troops, only supplies. But they had something more powerful than weapons. They had a message. They launched into orbit in silence. Lyra sat at the console, hacking into old royal channels. She accessed a broadcast line, one that reached all corners of the Empire. Then she stood in front of the camera and said, "I am Lyra of House Cerelia. I am alive, and I stand with the humans." It was a war cry and a plea, all in one, across the galaxy. People watched in shock. Some cheered, some cursed, but all of them listened. On Velisor, the Empire's forces hesitated. They watched the message playing across their own battle screens, and then, to their surprise, one of their own captains refused to fire. He turned his ship around, declaring, "I follow the one who saved a child, not the ones who burned them." The rebellion grew stronger that day. Hours later, a private message came to Jace's cruiser. It was encrypted and marked with the royal seal. Jace opened it carefully. A hologram of the Empress appeared. She looked pale, dying. To the human named Jace, she said, "You saved my daughter. And you've shown me what our Empire forgot: compassion." She coughed hard, holding her chest. "My final order is not to destroy you. It is to protect you. My Empire belongs to those who can love, not those who control." Then she looked into the camera with tired but soft eyes. "You have my blessing. My daughter has my crown." The message ended. Lyra was silent, her hand over her heart. She never said those words to me in person. Jace looked at her gently. She said them when it mattered most. But not everyone obeyed. The Crest of Fire faction, the same traitors who tried to kill Lyra, rejected the Empress's last order. They declared war on both the rebels and the humans. Their ships began gathering near the gas planet Vorthon. They planned to strike Earth in one final surprise attack. Jace called an emergency meeting. Aliens and humans gathered in the mountain base. He stood before them, tired but strong. We didn't start this, but if we don't stop it, it'll never end. He looked around at the faces so different, yet full of the same fear. And the same hope. He smiled slightly. They want to crush one human and one alien girl. Let's show them what 1,000 of us can do. Everyone stood. Old farmers brought fuel. Children offered food. Mechanics fixed broken engines. And pilots from 10 different species volunteered to fly beside Jace. Lyra stood before the crowd, holding her mother's crown. But she didn't wear it. Instead, she placed it on the table and said, "This doesn't matter." "You do? I'm not your princess. I'm your sister in this fight." The room roared. Above them, warships of light and shadow began to move. And the final battle between past and future was coming fast. The sky bridge floated above Earth's orbit like a giant metal spider. It was the largest communication hub built by the Empire. Every fleet order, every attack signal, every surveillance drone passed through it. If it stayed active, the Crest of Fire faction could control every corner of space. And now? It was the final key to Earth's destruction. Jace stood in the hangar, wearing an old pilot jacket and a new kind of fear. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a mechanic, a protector, a symbol. But today, he would fly again. Behind him, rebel pilots climbed into ships. Some patched together with scraps, others stolen from the Empire. They didn't look like warriors, but their eyes burned with purpose. Beside Jace, Lyra walked forward in armor laced with human wiring and alien design. Not heavy, but strong. She looked at the rising sun and whispered, "Let's end this." Their plan was simple. Strike fast, disable Skybridge. Cut off the traitors from the Empire systems. Without it, the enemy's fleet would lose command. But Skybridge wasn't just a target, it was a fortress. It was protected by 10 defense rings, thousands of drones, and 2 elite warships. They would need more than luck. As they launched into the sky, Earth faded behind them like a dream. Stars glittered all around. But Jace's eyes stayed locked on the massive structure ahead. He clicked his comlink, voice calm but clear. "This is Jace Riker. We're not here to conquer. We're here to shut down the lies. Stay in formation. Stay alive." The battle began before they reached the outer ring. Drones swarmed like angry wasps, firing blue beams of heat. Jace weaved his cruiser between bursts, returning fire with precise shots. Lyra, in the seat behind him, tracked targets with her glowing eyes. "I've marked the blind spots," she said quickly. "Go low, left thruster, then climb." Jace followed her directions without hesitation. They moved like one human and alien, pilot and navigator. Their cruiser dove through a tunnel of fire. Engines screaming all around them, ships exploded, lit like falling stars. The rebels didn't break. One by one, they took out the outer rings, the first, then the second, then the fourth. The third cost them a pilot named Kara, a young alien with silver skin who had dreamed of a free sky. Jace didn't speak when he saw her ship vanish in flame, but Lyra whispered, "We carry her fire forward." As they reached the central command ring, the enemy warships entered the fight, 2 massive vessels with black armor and red lights. On one of them stood the final enemy, Commander Rovak, the same man who once bowed to Jace, Khan, and then tried to kill him. He appeared on the main screen of the Skybridge broadcast. "Jace Riker, you could have stayed quiet. You could have handed her over. But now, you will die as a traitor to peace." Jace narrowed his eyes. "Peace? You mean fear. You wanted silence. We brought voices." Rovak smiled coldly. "Then let the galaxy hear your screams." The 2 warships fired at full force. Jace's cruiser shook violently, warning lights flashing. "I can't take another hit." He shouted, Lyra didn't panic. She reached under the console and pulled out the last crystal her mother had given her. "Plug this in," she said. Now, Jace connected the glowing cube to the main drive. Suddenly, the ship's engines surged, glowing with alien light. "What is this?" he gasped. "A royal override. My blood lets us into the sky bridge." Directly, the cruiser shot forward like a meteor. Dodging the enemy and slamming into a hidden port on the sky bridge, the doors opened. Jace and Lyra stormed inside. Inside, lights blinked red, alarms screamed. But no guards met them. Just silence, until a voice. "You shouldn't be here," said Rovak. Stepping from the shadows, he was taller than Jace remembered, armored in red and gold. "This isn't your fight," he said. "You're just a man who fixed machines." Jace raised his weapon, "And now I'm fixing something bigger." They fought no shields, no drones, just two men and one truth. Jace was older, slower, but every strike he threw came from pain. From fire, from purpose. Rovak was strong, but he fought for control, not for love, and in the end, love hit harder. Jace knocked him to the ground, his blaster aimed at his heart, but he didn't fire. Lyra stepped forward, holding the control key. "This is not revenge. This is justice," she said. And with one press, the sky bridge went dark. Across the stars, Empire ships lost signal. The Crest of Fire's command was gone, and the rebels. Jace sat down beside Lyra, breathing hard. "Did we just stop a war?" She smiled, tears in her eyes. "No, we started something better." Outside, rebel ships danced through the sky. The stars watched in silence, and far below, Earth waited for the return of the man who stood at the center of everything. The stars were quiet after the battle. No more explosions, no more fire in the sky, only silence, and the slow hum of ships returning home. But something had changed, not just on Earth, but across the galaxy, and it all started with one human and one alien girl, standing side by side. Inside the damaged sky bridge, Jace leaned against the wall. His arms ached, his uniform was torn, but his eyes were steady. Lyra stood next to him, bruised and dusty, but alive. She held the command key in her hands, the final piece of her mother's legacy. The bridge had fallen silent, except for one sound, a signal coming through. From the royal palace of Zorelia. Jace tapped the comm screen. A hologram appeared, showing the grand royal chamber. But the Empress was not sitting on the throne anymore. Instead, a council of elders stood there, leaders from different systems. Behind them, millions watched the broadcast. The council speaker spoke in a deep, respectful voice. "We have reviewed the Empress's last message and her order. Her will is clear." Jace stepped aside so the galaxy could see Lyra. She took a slow breath and said, "I don't want a crown. I don't want revenge. I only want peace between my people and the humans who saved me." Her voice shook slightly. But her eyes did not, and if that means standing without a throne, I accept. The council bowed their heads. Then, across 100 systems, the unthinkable happened. The Empire knelt. From star cruisers to city halls, from desert colonies to floating palaces. Leaders dropped to one knee, not in fear, but in honor. The image of a human mechanic and an alien girl once marked for death became a symbol. The war was over because the people refused to follow hate. Back on Earth, news spread like wildfire. People came out of homes, bunkers, shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw the alien ships powering down. Weapons turned off, flags lowered. Lights dimmed, children pointed up and shouted, "He did it. That's Jace's ship." And mothers cried, holding their little ones closer. Because for the first time in weeks, there was no fear in the sky. Jace and Lyra returned to Earth 3 days later. Their cruiser limped through the clouds, missing a wing and covered in battle scars. But when it landed in the same forest where it all began, a crowd of thousands was already waiting. Jay stepped out first, blinking at the sunlight. People clapped, cheered, even cried, not for a soldier, but for a man who didn't walk away. Lyra followed, smiling softly, her hand resting on Jace's shoulder. No guards, no armor, just truth. A little girl from the colony ran up with flowers in her arms. She handed them to Lyra and said shyly, "Thank you for protecting our sky." Lyra knelt and hugged her tightly, her eyes wet with tears. "I didn't do it alone," she whispered. Later that night, around a campfire under the stars, Jace sat with his old toolkit, fixing a broken cum device for a farmer. Lyra sat nearby, teaching alien letters to human children. They laughed together, like war had never touched them. It wasn't a royal court, but it was home. Someone asked Jace, "What happens now? Will you lead the new alliance?" He chuckled, shaking his head. "I'm just a man with a wrench," he said. "I don't do politics, but you changed everything," the farmer insisted. Jace looked up at the sky. "Maybe, but I didn't do it alone." She believed in peace before I ever believed in myself. From that day on, a new symbol was born, not of a sword, but of two hands, one human, one alien, pulling each other from the fire. Across the galaxy, they called it the Day of Kneeling, a reminder that strength isn't shown through power, but through compassion. A day when the stars bent to honor one act of kindness. Jace never returned to his old life. He stayed at the edge of the forest. Where the crash had happened, built a school with his own hands, taught humans and aliens how to live together. No fear, no chains, just hope, and Lyra. She never wore the crown, but she wore something better, a necklace made from wires and old metal bolts. A gift from the man who ran into the flames and gave her a second chance.